Topic of today's discussion is pharmacotherapy of angina pectoris. Myself, Dr. Dipti Bandavne, working as Professor, Department of Pharmacology at Progressive Education Society's Modern College of Pharmacy, Nigdi, Pune. In today's session, we are going to see what is angina pectoris, its characteristic symptoms, different types, pathophysiology behind angina, and pharmacology of different drugs used for treatment of angina pectoris. Ischemic heart diseases, as the name indicates, they are because of the ischemia, condition characterized by insufficient blood supply and thereby insufficient oxygen supply to the myocardium. Now, how the oxygen supply to the myocardium is provided? It is through the coronary artery that supplies the blood to the myocardium. If the coronary artery gets partially or completely occluded, then that kind of condition is called as ischemic heart diseases. Depending on whether there is partial occlusion or the complete occlusion, we have two types of ischemic heart diseases, angina pectoris and myocardial infarction. Angina pectoris is a chronic condition, whereas myocardial infarction is an acute condition that needs immediate treatment. As discussed earlier, here we can see the coronary artery which is supplying blood to the wall of the myocardium. Basically, why the blood supply is needed for any organ, say for heart, this is because for proper functioning of heart. Functioning of heart is, it functions as a pump to supply blood to all the organs of the body. So to maintain this proper functioning, heart needs blood because through blood it gets nutrients as well as oxygen. This blood supply is through coronary artery. Now here as shown, that coronary artery may get clogged by presence of atheroma, what we can say atheromatic plaque, and because of that there may be partial occlusion or complete occlusion of the coronary artery, resulting in the condition called angina pectoris and myocardial infarction respectively. Now, angina pectoris. Angina pectoris is an ischemic heart disease that occurs because of partial occlusion of coronary artery. Because of partial occlusion of coronary artery, there is reduced blood supply to the myocardium, so reduced oxygen supply. Because of this, heart cannot fulfill its oxygen demand needed for contractility purpose. And characteristic symptoms or outcome of this angina pectoris is characteristic symptoms of intermittent chest pain. Now basically, why this intermittent chest pain occur? The reason for that is due to inadequacy of ischemic left ventricle, the left end diastolic ventricular pressure, which was earlier 5 mmHg, it rises from 5 to 25 mmHg, which produces subendocardial crunch during diastole. And this is responsible for aggravating the ischemia in this region. Angina pectoris is classified in two major types. Classical angina, also called as typical angina, as it occurs in maximum population, and variant angina is the second type. Classical angina is again subclassified in two types, that is depending on the symptoms observed, that is stable angina and unstable angina. We will see one by one. Classical angina or typical angina is the most common form of angina pectoris, characterized by partial blockade of major coronary artery, resulting in a decrease in the amount of blood and oxygen supply to the heart. Here, the chest pain occurs as a characteristic symptom that indicates inability of the myocardium to fulfill the additional oxygen demand. Now, particularly in classical angina, what is the reason behind it? The reason is there is severe arteriosclerotic deposition of larger coronary arteries. Generally, they are called as conducting vessels. This coronary obstruction is fixed and therefore blood flow fails to increase during increased demand despite the local factors which are responsible in the resistance vessels. As mentioned earlier, classical angina is categorized in two types depending on the symptoms: stable angina and unstable angina. In stable angina pectoris, anginal attacks exhibit similar characteristics and take place under the same circumstances every time. It is mainly because of deposition of atheroma in the coronary artery. Unstable angina pectoris is characterized by rise in frequency and severity of anginal attacks in spite of taking rest by the patient. The reason behind it is mainly due to ruptured atheromatous plaque resulting in small thrombi which may occlude coronary blood vessel and may lead to myocardial infarction in near future. So unstable angina pectoris is dangerous or more severe than that of the stable angina pectoris. Variant angina pectoris is totally different form of disease because it is not characterized or not related to occlusion of coronary artery. So it is considered as uncommon form and is characterized by unpredictable anginal attacks that may occur during sleep or at rest. This is because it occurs due to sudden coronary vasospasm without presence of any atheroma or atheromatous plaque in the coronary blood vessel. The important aspect of pathophysiology of angina pectoris is disturbed balance between oxygen supply and oxygen demand to the myocardium. As shown here, the oxygen supply to the myocardium is mainly determined by coronary blood flow and regional blood flow distribution. Decreasing coronary blood flow to subendocardial tissue may result in ischemia and thereby decreases the functioning ability of the ventricles. This results in rise in end diastolic left ventricular pressure, thereby producing intermittent chest pain. On the other side, oxygen demand of the myocardium is determined by heart rate, cardiac contractility and myocardial wall tension. The myocardial wall tension is further determined by two important aspects regarding angina pectoris, that is preload, also called as ventricular diastolic pressure, and afterload, also termed as ventricular systolic pressure. Before starting with the different classes used for treatment of angina pectoris, I just want to mention that whatever is the disease, whenever the pharmacotherapy has to be decided, it depends on the pathophysiology of that disorder or disease. Here in case of angina, as we have seen, major parameter or major pathophysiological concept is disturbance in oxygen supply to oxygen demand. Considering that principle, the various classes are designed for treatment of angina pectoris, which will mainly act on these two parameters, that is either the drugs will increase the oxygen supply or the drugs will reduce the oxygen demand to provide relief in the patients of angina. So what are the drugs? First class of drugs is organic nitrates. It includes subclassification, that is short acting nitrates and long acting. Glyceryl trinitrate is the prototype compound of short acting nitrates, whereas long acting nitrates include isosorbide mononitrate and others as shown here. Another class of anti-anginal drug is calcium channel blockers. It is subcategorized in two classes depending on the chemical structure as well as depending on their particular activity related to cardiac tissue. So first class is dihydropyridines, which include the dipine series of compounds like amlodipine, nifedipine and others. Second class is non-dihydropyridines that include verapamil and diltiazem. Beta blockers include propranolol, metoprolol and atenolol. Potassium channel openers is one of the class that includes nicorandil. Miscellaneous compounds include dipyridamole and few other. Starting with the first class, that is organic nitrates. As discussed earlier, this class includes short-acting nitrates and long-acting nitrates. As shown in the diagram, you can see vascular endothelium and smooth muscle cell. Nitrates produce a direct relaxation of the smooth muscles because of release of nitric oxide in the vascular endothelial cells. This denitration takes place with the help of tissue sulfhydryl group. The nitric oxide thus formed diffuses in the smooth muscle cell where it causes activation of enzyme guanylyl cyclase GC. This enzyme increases level of cyclic GMP. Vascular relaxation by nitrate is because of cyclic GMP, as the enzyme causes inactivation of myosin light chain kinase MLCK. Inhibition of MLCK prevents conversion of myosin to myosin phosphate, which is the active form of myosin. Only this active form is required for interaction with actin for producing contraction. Thus, nitrates inhibit interaction of actin with myosin components and thereby produces relaxation. Coming to pharmacological actions of nitrates, nitrates exhibit more prominent vasodilatory effect on veins as compared to arteries. Dilatation of veins by nitrates decreases the venous return by pooling the blood peripherally. Now this produces decrease in ventricular volume, ventricular pressure and ventricular wall tension. Thus, nitrates decreases cardiac work and associated oxygen demand, thereby providing relief in angina pectoris. One of the major aspects of nitrate is its ability to relax bigger conducting vessels than arterioles. Now what happens because of this? Because of dilatation of conducting vessels, mainly nitrates carry out redistribution of coronary blood flow only in the ischemic zone, thereby providing relief in angina pectoris. Organic nitrates, they are given by oral, sublingual or transdermal route as they are well absorbed following these routes of administration. They are rapidly metabolized by glutathione reductase in mitochondria as well as in liver to less active metabolites which are excreted easily through urine. Coming to the adverse effects, major adverse effect of nitrate is development of tolerance after prolonged use. This tolerance develops due to depletion of tissue sulfhydryl groups that are required for conversion of nitrate to nitrous oxide gas, which is further diffusing to the smooth muscle. Also, the nitrates cause symptoms like throbbing headache, dizziness, flushing, sweating, palpitation and fainting. Glyceryl trinitrate or isosorbide dinitrate are used sublingually to terminate the attack of angina pectoris. For chronic prophylactic purpose, the long-acting nitrates are used by oral or transdermal route. Glyceryl trinitrate is used in myocardial infarction, provided the IV infusion should be carefully titrated. Nitrates are used to improve the left ventricular function, thereby providing relief in congestive heart failure. Sublingual nitroglycerin is used to treat biliary colic and to relieve the spasm of esophagus. Sodium nitrite, one of the compound from organic nitrates and nitrite, is useful in the management of cyanide poisoning. Sodium nitrite is a valuable drug in treatment of cyanide poisoning due to its ability to produce methemoglobin from hemoglobin. Methemoglobin has a strong affinity for a cyanide radical, thereby forming cyanomethemoglobin. It then reacts with exogenously administered 25% solution of sodium sulfate to form methemoglobin and sodium thiocyanate. Sodium thiocyanate, being water soluble, is excreted through urine, and in this manner the cyanide gets excreted in urine. Dosage regimen of different nitrates are shown here. It can be given sublingually, can be given transdermally or orally in different doses. Calcium channel blockers, as the name indicate, calcium channel blockers block the calcium channels present in smooth muscles of plasma membrane and cardiac tissue. This class includes dihydropyridines like amlodipine, felodipine and dipinceres, and non-dihydropyridines including drugs like diltiazem and verapamil. Calcium channels are basically classified in three main types, that is voltage sensitive calcium channels, receptor operated calcium channels and leak channels. Based on electrophysiological properties, voltage sensitive calcium channels are further subclassified as L type, that is long lasting, and T type, that is transient calcium channels. Both L type and T type calcium channels are present in SA node, AV node and vascular smooth muscles. Heart muscles, however, contain only L-type calcium channels. Now, these L-type calcium channels are high voltage channels showing slow rate of inactivation. Thereby, they exhibit long duration of action. T-type calcium channels, on the other hand, they are low voltage channels showing rapid rate of inactivation. They possess short duration of action. Calcium channel blockers, whatever we are going to discuss, they block only L-type calcium channels. Now, how the calcium channel produces vasodilatory effect? Calcium through calcium channel enter the smooth muscle and binds to calmodulin as shown in the diagram. Once it binds to calmodulin, it activates enzyme myosin kinase. Myosin kinase in turn phosphorylates the myosin light chain. Myosin phosphate interacts with actin to produce muscle contraction, as it was discussed in nitrates. Similar kind of thing. Calcium channel blockers prevent this entry of calcium ions in the smooth muscles. Since calcium cannot enter, the cascade of events what we discussed earlier involved in muscle contraction is prevented. So final stage, that is contraction of smooth muscle, cannot take place. This results in the relaxation of vascular smooth muscles, thereby producing vasodilatation. The antianginal effect of calcium channel blockers is mainly due to the dilatation of arteries to a greater extent than veins. This particular effect is also responsible for antihypertensive action exhibited by calcium channel blockers. Now, dilatation of arteries by calcium channel blockers produce a decrease in arterial and aortic pressure. This decreases total peripheral resistance and causes fall in ventricular systolic pressure, what we earlier discussed as afterload on heart. This action results in decrease in cardiac work, which is directly proportional to resistance of blood flow through aorta. This resistance of blood flow through aorta is termed as aortic impedance, an important aspect in treating the angina pectoris. Dihydropyridine type of calcium channel blockers are potent vasodilators which may produce reflex tachycardia. They do not show any effect on cardiac tissue. Non-dihydropyridines, however, produce significant effect on cardiac tissue besides their effect on arterioles. The effect on cardiac tissue include negative chronotropic effect, negative inotropic effect, and negative dromotropic effect. Calcium channel blockers are absorbed orally. However, they show incomplete oral bioavailability because of their tendency to undergo extensive first-pass metabolism. These drugs are highly plasma protein bound and their metabolites are excreted in urine. Elimination half-life of majority of the calcium channel blockers is 2 to 6 hours, but amlodipine shows longer elimination half-life of about 40 hours. It is therefore administered as 1 or 2 times a day. Other calcium channel blockers are administered as immediate release preparations and sustained release preparations. Adverse effects of calcium channel blockers include commonly headache, fatigue, dizziness, and hypotension, whereas it may be considered that few of the calcium channel blockers may be associated with cardiovascular effects, gastrointestinal bleeding, and cancer. Advantage of calcium channel blockers in angina pectoris is that it can be given to patients having concomitant obstructive lung disease, peripheral vascular diseases, and in those patients who cannot be prescribed beta blockers. Now, calcium channel blockers are useful in both typical and variant angina. In typical angina, the effectiveness of calcium channel blockers is because of providing relief by decreasing afterload and thereby decreasing the cardiac work and oxygen demand. Whereas in variant angina, calcium channel blockers show their effect due to their vasodilatory property, relaxation of coronary smooth muscles, and increasing the oxygen supply. Besides heart rate, these drugs decreases conduction velocity and cardiac output. Beta blockers also reduces cardiac work and myocardial oxygen consumption. They decrease total coronary blood flow in subepicardial region without having any effect on subendocardial region, which is an advantageous situation in angina pectoris. Both non-selective beta blockers like propranolol and selective beta blockers like atenolol, metoprolol are effective in treatment of classical angina. In classical angina, beta blockers provide relief by decreasing heart rate, cardiac output, and by decreasing oxygen demand. The frequency and severity of anginal attacks is reduced and there is improvement in exercise tolerance by beta blockers. In variant angina, however, cardioselective beta blockers are preferred as non-selective beta blockers may aggravate the vasospasm. Further, beta blockers, by decreasing the myocardial oxygen demand, reduce the risk of sudden cardiac death in patients suffering from myocardial infarction. Nicorandil, a prominent potassium channel opener, shows anti-anginal effect through various mechanisms of actions. Nicorandil stimulate ATP-sensitive potassium channels, thereby increasing the outflow of potassium ions. This results in hyperpolarization of the vascular smooth muscles. Also, nicorandil produces nitric oxide, increases cyclic GMP and produces vascular relaxation, as we have earlier discussed in mechanism of action of both nitrates and calcium channel blockers. Nicorandil also increases coronary blood flow by arteriodilatation and venodilatation. Nicorandil provides relief in angina pectoris by increasing the exercise tolerance, decreasing the severity and frequency of anginal attacks. It possesses cardioprotective property under which it has the tendency to improve the myocardial recovery from ischemic damage after myocardial infarction. Nicorandil is used to prevent thromboembolic complications in post-myocardial and post-stroke patients. Its adverse effects include weakness, palpitation, headache, flushing, nausea, vomiting, and dizziness. Dipyridamole is a coronary vessel dilator which acts by increasing total coronary flow in small resistance vessels of coronary bed. It increases the level of adenosine, a vasodilatory nucleotide, by inhibiting the enzyme adenosine deaminase. It produces dilatation of resistance vessels without affecting larger conducting vessels. However, it also dilates resistance vessels in a non-ischemic region, thereby further diverting the blood flow from ischemic zone. For this reason, it is not used as an anti-anginal drug. Trimetazidine is an anti-anginal drug that acts by non-hemodynamic mechanisms. It is not clear, but it is considered that it may improve the cellular tolerance to ischemia by protecting the membrane from free radical-induced damage. It may reduce fatty acid metabolism and increase glucose metabolism in myocardium. The protective mechanism of trimetazidine may include its ability to reduce intracellular acidosis and decrease the accumulation of sodium and potassium ions during ischemia. Trimetazidine is well absorbed orally, it is partly metabolized and extensively excreted unchanged in urine. It is effective when used as an anti-anginal drug in patients not controlled by nitrates or calcium channel blockers or beta blockers. It reduces severity and frequency of anginal attacks and improves the exercise tolerance in angina patients. Thus, in today's session, we have seen angina pectoris, its characteristic symptoms, types of angina pectoris, and pharmacology of different drugs used for treatment of angina pectoris. Thank you.